Good afternoon. My name is Jill Foster. I'm a Marion County Hearings Officer. It is Thursday, April 29th, 2021, and we have one case this afternoon. The case set for today is case number 20-44, and it is the appeal of Planning Division decision on an application of Jeff and Heidi Jones on property owned by Agritainment, Inc., for a conditional use to establish a farm experience program for youth and families as a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use on a 74.5 acre property in an EFU, exclusive farm use zone, located at 21465 Arbor Grove Road, Northeast, St. Paul, Oregon. I'm going to go over the hearings procedures first, and then we can begin with the hearing. The hearing procedures are as follows. First, we'll discuss the nature of the case, or why we're here, and see if there's any preliminary objections. Summarize the material in the file, which is the record. The Planning Division will present its report and decision. Then the applicant or the applicant's representative will present their case. Then we'll have testimony in favor of the application and testimony in opposition. I understand I've received information that there's, I think it's testimony in favor of the application or general comments that will be taken by telephone testimony. And then we will have any other general comments, a rebuttal by the applicant, because since the applicant has the burden of proof, the applicant gets to have the final word. The hearing will close today at the end of testimony unless there's a request to keep the record open to submit any additional information, or if there's a request to continue the hearing. Please let me know before we close the hearing if you would like to keep the record open to submit any additional information. No decision will be made today. The decision will be in writing, and a copy will be mailed to the applicant and/or the applicant's representative, interested parties, affected governmental agencies, and anyone else who has requested a copy. We are recording this hearing today. Testimony will be taken from the table in the center there, and the hearing will be recorded. Please talk directly into the microphone so that we can properly record the hearing. The process is somewhat informal, but we will ask that when you testify, it is done under oath or affirmation. The record in this case is a public record. Any documents submitted become part of the public record. Additional documents such as photographs, letters, maps that you would like to submit, please give to me during the hearing. We'll mark them, enter them into the record as exhibits. And generally, I cannot give these exhibits back to you, but we can make copies if necessary and get those back to you. All issues need to be raised today. The failure to raise an issue in this hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal on that issue and may preclude it from being raised at a later time. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. For a condition of approval to apply, it must be stated with sufficient specificity to enable the applicant to respond to the condition prior to the close of the local hearing. Reference to ORS 197.7963. I have had no ex parte communications in this matter, which means I haven't had any contact with any of the parties outside of today's hearing, and I have only seen and know what is in the court's file, or in the case file. The nature of the case, I'll start there. This is the date and time set for the hearing in the matter of the application of Jeff and Heidi Jones on property owned by Agritainment, Inc., for conditional use to establish a farm experience program for youth and families as a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use on a 74.5 acre property in an EFU zone located at 21465 Arbor Grove Road, Northeast, St. Paul, Oregon. The purpose of this hearing is to receive testimony on a request to allow the establishment of a farm experience program as a commercial activity on the subject property. Planning Division denied the conditional use application on February 1, 2021, and the planning director for Marion County has reconsidered and denied the conditional use application on March 16, 2021. Notice of the public hearing on this application was provided to persons who own property within the required notification area for the case on, I believe, April 9th, 2021. The applicants have the burden of proving compliance with all applicable criteria as provided in Oregon Revised Statutes and the Marion County Code, specifically Marion County Code Chapter 17, by a preponderance of the evidence, which means the applicants must prove by substantial evidence in the record that it is more likely than not that each criterion is met. Before I summarize the material in the case file, I will ask the parties if there's any objections. Any objections to the request for hearing, notices, jurisdiction, conflict of interest, or any other basis for an objection?
Not at this time.
We will proceed. The case file for the conditional use permit 20044 will be made a part of the record. The case file contains the application, the file from Marion County Planning Division, notice of public hearing, request for comments to agencies, responses, as well as attachments and exhibits, including map and drawings. The case file also includes the request for reconsideration and extension agreement, including statement of the applicant dated February 16th, 2021, as well as supplemental application materials dated March 3rd, 2021. It also includes the notice of reconsideration of the planning decision, the notice of appeal of the planning decision, including a statement of appeal. The standards, I should also, and it does also add the an email submitted to planning from Tom Harbolt that is a recent submission as of today into the record. So that email will also be included as the record, as part of the record. The standards and criteria relevant to this application are found in the Marion County Comprehensive Plan and Marion County Code Title 17, especially Chapters 17.119 and 17.137, as well as the Oregon Revised Statutes, and to the extent applicable, statewide planning goals and Oregon administrative rules. Those are the criteria that I believe apply, and if you have, she mentioned 17.136 as well. Those are the criteria that I believe apply, and if you believe that any of those criteria do not apply, or you believe additional criteria apply, please let me know in your testimony or presentation. So with that, we will begin. We begin with planning. Please provide, actually, let's first just do your name and spell your name and address for the record.
For the record, this is Lindsay King, K-I-N-G. I live at 503 Eagleview Drive, Salem.
And Ms. King, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in this proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Please proceed.
For the record, again, this is Lindsay King, Marion County Planning Department. The item before you today is an application for a conditional use permit to operate a commercial use in conjunction with farm use on a 74.5 acre parcel in the exclusive farm use zone. The property is located at 21465 Arbor Grove Road, Northeast St. Paul. The commercial business the applicants are proposing is a farm experience program for youths and families. The proposed experience would be directed towards youth and families on an educational level. Additionally, the applicant proposes other activities related to the farm experience, such as U-Pick, harvest and holiday themed activities, retail sales of local products, wildlife viewing, and plant education. The subject property is located approximately 3 miles from the city of Donald and is not located within an urban growth boundary. The property is located on the west side of Arbor Grove Road at the intersection with McKay Road Northeast. The property currently contains existing home, accessory buildings, and has larger areas of development that used to be, from what I presume is greenhouses, based on aerial photos. Properties surrounding the parcels are all zoned exclusive farm use and in farm use. The Planning Division requested comments from various governmental agencies. Those that provided comments were Marion County Department of Public Works, Land Development and Engineering, and Marion County Building Department. These comments are located in the file and in the staff memo. There are streams, wildlife habitat area, and potentially geological hazard areas identified on the property, and therefore the proposal may have some impact on these resources. The scale of the business should not affect air quality, and the proposal is being done on an exclusive farm use zoned parcel, which is designated for farm use. No additional land will be taken out of production from farming because of this use. This use will not raise the cost of farming in the area. Staff issued a decision of denial on February 1 of 2021 and a decision of denial for reconsideration on March 16th of 2021. Staff gave the decision based on specific criteria in the zoning code which could not be met. This proposal is an educational, school-based project with some agritourism aspects. In order for the permit to be approved, the applicant must meet all criteria. The criteria staff concluded were not met were 17.136.060D, A, and D. Staff believes that the proposal does not meet the definition of a commercial use in conjunction with a farm use based on the approval criteria. Therefore, staff recommends that the proposed conditional use be denied. And I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you. I think I've read the report. I don't have any questions of planning at this time. Does the applicant have any specific questions for planning? Okay, thank you. Then we will hear from the applicants. Jeff and Heidi Jones, I understand, represented by attorney Michael Gilardi. Yeah, please, okay. Are you Mrs. Jones?
Yes, I am.
Thanks. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
It's Heidi Jones, Heidijones.
And your address, please, Mrs. Jones.
17305 Northeast Leander, Leander Drive in Sherwood, Oregon.
Thank you. And Mrs. Jones, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in this proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Jones, and this is my husband, Jeff. We were both born and raised in Oregon, are graduates of OSU, and brought up our two sons mainly in the Newburgh area, where Jeff and I helped start a pre-K through 12 school in 1997. I ran the school office for several years, served as substitute teacher, marketing director, tour guide, and college advisor. Jeff served on the board there for 21 years and now serves as chairman of the board for another private school in Beaverton. All this to say, quality education has been a passion of ours for over 25 years, as has time with family, the outdoors, and agriculture. My husband has worked in the nursery industry for over 37 years as a top salesman for the former Oregon Garden Products and Heinz Nurseries, then as the creator and owner of two nursery-related businesses, American Nursery Services, which is responsible for merchandising all the Home Depot garden centers in most of the western U.S., and Fusion Marketing, which coordinates the sale of nursery stock from local growers to Home Depot. One of Fusion Marketing's largest customers is Ernst Nursery here in Marion County. Jeff also started Firmly Planted, a nonprofit that allows nursery owners to donate overgrown or leftover landscaping plants and materials to organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, schools and churches, animal shelters, etc. Jeff and I have always enjoyed activities that enabled us to be outside with our boys, but also helped them grow their minds and bodies in the process. And as we both neared retirement, have wanted to create something that could allow other children to have such experiences. Maybe those from schools in surrounding communities, or who live surrounded by pavement in downtown Portland or Salem, or those who have physical impairments that make it difficult for them to be active outdoors. 10 years ago, Jeff and I started really looking for the right piece of property, something that wasn't just farmland, but also offered a variety of landscapes for us to possibly utilize in some sort of program. 3 years ago, he saw a photo online of a beautiful old dairy barn on 75 acres off Arbor Grove Road in St. Paul that was for sale through bankruptcy. We were hooked. For over 30 years, this amazing piece of land had been used for raising nursery stock, primarily in hoop houses on gravel covering about 2 acres, with the 35 arable acres being planted in some variety of field crops. The remaining 38 acres are covered in dense forest, a lowland traversed by Shampooey Creek, and another couple acres of buildings that include the home, dairy barn, and 4 large outbuildings. Unfortunately, when the previous owner began having major financial issues, he was not able to maintain the property and buildings. These soon became overgrown with blackberries, poison oak, and weeds, as well as covered in piles of tree debris and garbage from his nursery business. After a year of difficult negotiations, in May of 2019, we were finally able to buy what we've since named Red Oak Farm for the 2 giant stunning trees near the house. We have worked really hard to reclaim the land and bring it back to its natural beauty and usefulness. We hired 2 excavators who spent weeks pulling down the mountains of blackberries and gathering all the fallen trees and brush into piles, which we chipped and used to cover the many walking trails in the woods. We filled 11 40-yard dumpsters with garbage from the barn and outbuildings and turned in 6 pickup loads of old chemicals. That fall, we asked to have a pre-application meeting with the Marion County planning staff in order to see if it would even be possible to create some sort of farm experience on this special piece of land, such as an agricultural field trip destination for school children. We were granted a meeting that November and had what we thought was a really enjoyable and positive hour-long discussion with the 5 people there. We left very much heartened by their encouragement and openness with us about how to proceed, what the application process might be like, and advice on such specific details as what kind of driveway we'd need to install and where in order for buses and emergency vehicles to safely enter. We genuinely felt that they were excited by the possibility of someone creating a farm destination for children that might help grow their understanding of and enthusiasm for agriculture, and maybe down the road get them interested in agricultural careers. A large part of our motivation for this type of farm experience came from people telling us repeatedly that family farms in Oregon and across the country are becoming a thing of the past, as many children of farmers don't want the same type of life for their parents, as their parents. After the great initial meeting, we definitely felt we would very much be supported by the county in this venture if we moved forward. So we met with the landscape architect to see what would be the best layout and use for our land that wasn't included in the 35 arable acres, as those would remain in crop production. In 2020, we grew winter wheat, and this year it's red clover adorned with 6 visiting beehives. We also had him draw up plans for the new half-mile-long, not inexpensive entry road, which was requested and approved by the county and is scheduled to begin construction next week. We met early on with a number of area teachers to brainstorm ideas as to what elements create a really great field trip experience for their students. I then passed along these ideas to our architect, who designed a building that could be used for both our personal farm projects as well as farm experience activities by providing an open room where children could be inside during inclement weather. It is critical to us that any and every child who comes to Red Oak Farm feels both safe and comfortable. The building has things like a cement floor with a channel drain, 4-inch cement baseboards, and an inside hose bib so the area can be completely washed clean, and we also have a covered porch-like area. Both these will allow us to bring the outdoors inside for the children when we encounter those ultra-frequent episodes of Oregon's liquid sunshine. This workshop is now in its final stages of completion. During this time, we also hired a woman to help us develop program ideas that would be both fun and educational for the children. One of the ideas we were working on included a lesson for older students where they'd walk around a display of farm equipment and tractor attachments, and we'd have them evaluate the pieces, trying to determine each one's purpose in farming. We thought this would be a fun challenge, especially for those with engineering minds. I mentioned this idea one day to Joel at Ernst Irrigation in St. Paul, and he said his company would absolutely love to help us gather any equipment necessary to put that lesson together. To a person, everyone in the agricultural industry that we've talked to has been just as enthusiastic and supportive as Joel. We were buying a mower that day, and during that same visit, another young employee there who overheard what Joel and I were talking about encouraged us heartily to meet with his former FFA coach at North Marion High, as she would undoubtedly want her students to get involved with assisting in our program. Not to sound redundant, but again, based on the positive response we had previously received from the county staff, We worked very hard this past year to create our business plan and site design so that we could then present a permit application that we believed was thorough and consistent with everything we had discussed with the staff during our pre-planning meeting. Needless to say, we were then very much confused and disappointed when our permit was denied. We later noticed that the person who had been assigned to review our application was someone newly hired and not one of the people who had sat in on our November meeting. So then we took the approach that we just needed to reapply and fill her in better on what she may have missed that day in order to help her see the bigger vision of the type of program we were hoping to create at Red Oak Farm. We explained how our program would include products and plants from other farms, as well as hopefully involve FFA and 4-H participants when possible. We cited just a few of the numerous farms around Oregon and the country that offer similar programs. We provided letters from the farm's neighbors, an FFA coordinator, area business owners, school teachers, etc., all supporting our goal of generating more understanding of and interest in agriculture and related areas of study and work. It truly seemed that we had crossed all our T's and dotted every possible I. In every instance where we've shared this dream, we have not been aware of anyone who doesn't wholeheartedly support it, except apparently the county staff. Because our second application was similarly denied without giving us any clarification for the reasoning behind that denial, despite our having provided further, more extensive information and explanations in response to the few questions or concerns that the county raised in the first permit denial. It seems as if we could have so easily avoided this hearing if someone would have come forward to explain his or her issues with our idea during the original meeting in 2019, or at least after we'd submitted either application. And now we're at a point where we have invested a great deal of time and money into a project we were led to believe would be supported by the staff of the Marion County Planning Office. We don't believe it impertinent or unrealistic to ask for more of an explanation than just permit denied. We strongly believe that the program we're proposing, one that helps develop a love of farming in our school children, could be a great and positive benefit to this county and the state as a whole. And once again, we ask that our application for a land use permit for Red Oak Farm be approved. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ms. Foster. My name is Michael Gilardi. I'm the applicant's legal counsel. For the record, my name is spelled G-E-L-A-R-D-I, and my address is P.O. Box 8529 in Coburg, 97408. Before I get started, I just wanted to ask one clarifying question about the record. I
Yes.
believe what you said is the only evidence that has come in since our appeal statement is one email from Mr. Harpel, I believe his name is. Is that correct?
Well, I should probably clarify that. I had the entire file, and the only thing that's been given to me since that time,
Okay.
which was given to me probably about a week ago, was the email.
Okay. We just want to make sure that we have access to all the evidence in the record. I
Yes.
understand that the county has a policy that any written testimony for the hearing had to be received as of yesterday at 5 o'clock. We haven't received any report or documents from the county. I think there was some confusion as to whether or what was going to be posted on the website, and I think we were told orally by staff sometime last week that no, they're not going to post anything else on the website. So we just want clarity on what's in the
Okay.
record.
And maybe Ms. King has it. Have you received any written testimony submitted?
We received an email. Let me actually have a copy. The email I gave to the record this
Okay.
afternoon when I first got here.
Is that the email from Tom Harbolt?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else that was received was put into the file, and staff does not put, or Marion County Planning doesn't put any other staff reports. We don't generate staff reports for public hearings, for appeals to the hearings officer. So everything that was on the website would have been items that that the applicants or representative have already received.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
This case is about arbitrary decision-making by the county planning staff. The staff have offered no legitimate justification for why the applicant doesn't meet the applicable criteria. Instead, the decision is based on, as the Court of Appeals has put it, some other predilection of the decision maker. We don't know what that predilection is because they haven't explained themselves, despite all the process that we've been through. What I'd like to do is to talk about how the commercial activity use fits into the scheme of state and local law that govern uses on farmland, and then just summarize the evidence that's in the record for why we meet the two criteria that appear to be at issue. Now, the commercial activity category implicates both state and local law. The county has particular criteria for this use. Those are local criteria, and they're based on outdated LUBA case law. As you may know, Ms. Foster, the EFU statutes provide two lists of things you can do on farmland, specifically ORS 215-283. Subsection 1 of that statute are permitted uses, and subsection 2 are conditional uses. The commercial activity category is a conditional use, and unlike many of the other uses that are listed in the statutes, there are no specific definitions or criteria in the statute for that particular use. But there's over 30 years of case law that define this use. The leading case is Craven v. Jackson County from the Oregon Supreme Court in 1989, and more recently, the Stoller Vineyards case, which is Friends of Yamhill County v. Yamhill County from the Court of Appeals. And the basic standard from that line of cases is that the commercial activity must relate specifically to local farm uses and enhance the farm uses to which it relates. Now, the county's criteria come from a LUBA decision from 1994. It's City of Sandy versus Clackamas County. And what that case was about was it was about a store that was on farmland outside of the City of Sandy. And the store was selling farm supplies, but it was selling other stuff. And it was selling to farmers, and it was selling to the general public as well. For example, they were selling trailers, and they were selling mailbox services. And the City of Sandy opposed this store because it was competing with the stores in town. And so LUBA was was sort of carrying forward this idea that's in the Supreme Court's Craven decision about, even though a use might sell to farmers, it doesn't necessarily make it in conjunction with farm use. So they were sort of wrestling with this idea in the context of a retail use. And so in that context, LUBA, came up with these statements about how the commercial activity must be, primarily a customer or supplier of farms and must be essential to the practice of agriculture. So that's where the county's criteria come from. More recently, the courts have not applied those criteria. What the courts have said is, no, that was really specific to the facts of the Sandy case, and this is specifically in the Friends of Yamhill County case. In that case, the Stoller Vineyards is large existing vineyard, existing winery, and they wanted to build a new standalone wine tasting room and have a sort of a slate of visitor activities. And the opponents argued that the county had to apply what they called the Sandy factors, and that fancy tasting rooms and wine events are not essential to growing grapes and making wine, and that the tasting room is not a customer or a supplier of farm uses. Instead, it's supplying tourists. That was their argument. And I say this from personal experience because I represented Stoller Vineyards in that case. The courts rejected that. They said, no, you're reading too much into Sandy. Sandy was really about the facts of that case. And so I go through all this just to be clear that there's no state law issue with what the Joneses are proposing here. There's nothing in 30 years of case law that would suggest that this use does not qualify as commercial activity in conjunction with farm use. So that's the state law. Of course, the county has these, Sandy ideas, in its code. But the staff have offered, no justification for why the applicant doesn't meet these standards. I mean, the evidence shows that we meet the plain text of the criteria. And this brings me to, what's in the record. So the first criterion that's at issue is the customer supplier standard. The staff did not even attempt to explain why the Farm Experience Program is not a customer of Farm Uses. We explained in detail how, the farming that is occurring and is planned on the property, how the specific crops that are being grown on the property are going to be utilized in the program, and how the program is going to utilize other crops from surrounding farms. So that was our first line of evidence as to why we meet that standard. The program is a customer of Farm Uses. Second, we showed that the program is also related to Jeff Jones's Fusion Marketing business, which is a wholesale nursery business, and how that business is primarily a customer of Farm Uses because it's buying local nursery stock and selling it. So we explained that. And then the third line of evidence that we had was that the program is a supplier of Farm Uses because the program is designed to help secure the long-term supply of agricultural workers. The program is designed to inspire and train young people to enter careers in agriculture. The staff's decision doesn't even attempt to explain why the evidence doesn't show that we meet the criteria under any of those three arguments. Now, the other criterion that's at issue is this essential to the practice of agriculture standard. And, we've put forward the straightforward proposition that, a qualified and motivated, supply of workers is essential to the practice of agriculture. And there are several letters in the record from local farm businesses and farm organizations talking about the need to to get young people interested in farming and how this program could help do that. And again, the staff haven't even attempted to explain why that evidence doesn't demonstrate that it's essential to the practice of agriculture. So,
Can I ask questions along the way?
Absolutely.
So, in this essential to the practice of agriculture, does the essential purpose need to be tied to this location, the farm use at this location?
Ms. Hearings Officer, you're saying, does it have to be essential to the practice of agriculture on this property?
Yeah, does there need to be any connection with the property that's the subject of the application and that purpose? I mean, because I think probably everybody would agree that's an essential purpose, but does there need to be any connection under the criteria?
No, there's no evidence that that's what the county intended by the local standard, and there's nothing in the state case law that would suggest that that's the standard. What the case law says about this, and again, the essential to the practice of agriculture standard comes out of Sandy. It's not something that's been carried forward in other cases, but what the case law has recognized is that building support and appreciation for local farming and local farm crops is essential to the practice of agriculture. And where you see that in the case law is in the winery context, that it's essential that we allow consumers to come out and view vineyards and taste wine and understand how that form of agriculture works. And so it's not necessarily tied to the, what's going on that particular farm, but it's about overall building the market for local agriculture, building appreciation for local agriculture. So no, to answer your question, no. The staff have certainly not produced any evidence that that's the intent of the county standard, and there's nothing in the state case law that would indicate that intent.
Thank you.
So in conclusion, applicants demonstrated that they meet the applicable criteria. The staff's decision is not based on the criteria, and for that reason, they've exceeded their authority, and they've made a decision that's not based on substantial evidence in the record. So we respectfully request that you reverse the staff's decision. And we reserve the opportunity for rebuttal in case we hear more testimony or you have more questions that, you know, we feel like we need to answer at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, and actually, do you mind if I just ask a couple questions here?
Absolutely.
Just so I mean, it's pretty clear where the issues between the applicants and the county's decision. Is there any requirement that the customer be considered, you referenced the program as the customer. Is there any requirement that in state law or any case law about a pre-existing farm use and then coming in as a customer to this, what has been continuing farm use? Is that a relevant consideration?
I don't believe so, Ms. Foster. So one thing that's in the record is the County Board of Commissioners' decision in the Croft Vineyards case, which I believe is 2016. And, you know, the facts of that case are different than our facts, but there's a couple of things that are important there. And I wanted to bring that to your attention because that's a local case that deals with the county's local standards, including this customer supplier standard. So in that case, there was no farm use on the property. And the company owned a couple of vineyards, you know, across the river in Polk County, and they wanted to use this property in Marion County for a winery to make wine and primarily as a tasting room. Okay, so there was no farm use on the property. They were going to use their own grapes to make wine on the property. So they're using farm crops just like the Joneses are going to use farm crops in their commercial activity. So it's not, you know, customer in the sense of like a retail transaction, you know, where you're buying farm crops. And the Board of Commissioners accepted that. And I think that there's an analogy there to what the Joneses are proposing, and that's detailed in our appeals statement, and the board's decision is in the record.
Will the program, does the inquiry need to say, will the program be a customer or a supplier of products from that specific farm?
What the standard says is it says primarily a customer or supplier of farm uses. So they can be a customer of, you know, other farms, of, you know, crops that are grown on other farms, services that are provided on other farms. They can be a supplier of farm uses. So what we're saying on the supplier end is that we're helping to supply labor over the long term, basically, or we're helping to facilitate the supply of labor.
Okay. Is the nursery stock that's part of the fusion marketing developed on this parcel? And is that a relevant inquiry?
I don't believe it's a relevant inquiry. In the Craven case from 1989, the argument, you know, similar to Crofts, the winemaker, the applicant in that case, did not have an on-site vineyard. And so the opponents were arguing, you can't be a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use because you don't have farm use on your property. I think his idea was he was going to plant a vineyard eventually, but he didn't have one at the time. And, you know, that was upheld. That it doesn't have to be commercial activity in conjunction with the farm use on the property. It's commercial activity in conjunction with farm use locally. But again, this is in conjunction with the farm use on the property, on the Joneses property, in addition to other properties. So we're sort of above and beyond that standard that comes out of the Craven case. But in terms of the factual question that you had, you know, the nursery stock that's obtained through fusion is going to be used in the program. There's going to be, you know, nursery trees on the property. The nursery trees are going to be used in program activities. terms, plant identification exercises, for example, other aspects of the program. And I would point you to our original application narrative, but especially the supplement, where we really break down how the farm crops are going to be used in each element of the program. The program is defined in the original application, and then we go further in the supplement to say, no, this is exactly how we're going to be using crops in each aspect of the program, including the fusion nursery stock.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does planning want to say anything at this point? If not, I'll do Mr. Harbolt's call.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
If you have questions, we're definitely here to answer those at any time, specifically criteria related if you'd like.
Okay, thanks. We'll come back then. I want to forget Mr. Harbolt.
Tom.
Good afternoon. This is Jill Foster. I'm a Marion County Hearings Officer. This proceeding is being recorded, and it's my understanding that you wanted to present testimony on the conditional use application 20-044. Is that correct?
Yes, I signed up for it. I also submitted written last night, or before 5 yesterday. Is that in the record?
Yes, I have received an email that was received from you with your position. Did you want to be sworn in and provide any additional testimony?
No, I don't believe that I have additional testimony, or I guess in addition to what's in that email, I would be able to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I would like to swear you in and then ask maybe a question or two.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. For the record, please state your full name and spell your last name.
Thomas Philip Harbolt. Harbolt is spelled Harbolt.
Okay. Thank you. And your address?
475 Scenic Ridge Court, Redmond, Oregon, 97756.
Right. And I have an address here for the post office box in Hillsborough. Is that where any mailing should be provided?
Sure, that works.
Okay. Okay. And Mr. Harbolt, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in this proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at your email. Can you tell me what, as an owner of a wholesale nursery and beekeeper and cattleman, what do you believe that if this farm use was able to be used for educational purposes, how that would be essential to the agricultural world?
Yeah, and I am having a little trouble hearing you, but I think if I heard you correctly, you'd like to know my opinion as to why I think this educational permit for this educational experience would be essential for agriculture. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. And I'll just say that one of my criteria is that the products and services, which I take as the farm experience in this case, must be essential to the practice of agriculture. I wonder if you'd like to add anything to that.
Right. I guess I have some distinct sensitivities around education, because I think that we've got less and less funding in formal schooling for education in a lot of different things. I think we all know the things that have been stripped out of public schools, just more basics, metal shop, wood shop, all these different things that because of limitations on budgets. And my livelihood is within agriculture, and there's two themes, I think, around education and agriculture. And I said, even in my testimony, we can't, or in the submission that I wrote, we can't find enough qualified workers. And some people might think right away, oh, you're talking about workers who are outside in the fields, and there's an immigration issue. That's your issue, and that's not my issue. That's going to work its way out. There's simply not enough people that are interested in agriculture as a career, because people who are already in this country are not exposed to it unless they grow up on a farm. They're part of a family. And so there's two things: is we can't even find managers. We can't find mid-level managers. We can't find the necessary employees as we try to expand our business. And that's troubling, because that's going to get worse and worse and worse. And then there's a whole other theme in agriculture, that there's not enough people to go into it just to support the food system. As the United States continues to grow, I don't want to take this to 30,000 feet as it applies to this permit, but education is going to solve these issues if we're going to have enough people who can maintain just the current growing operations, but also as ag continues to expand, having enough people get educational experiences. And as I mentioned in my written testimony, we need to expose children and other people to these potential careers. You could say, yes, there's colleges that you can go get a degree in ag, but that's after people have already decided to do it. It would be great if we could expose people at a younger age that these are careers. It's a great career and a great way of life. And I should say that I have involvement also where we owned Camp Cascade up on the Sandy Am, and it was a camp that, while it did sports, it also, with Oregon's mandate of outdoor school education for all sixth graders, there's not enough camps in Oregon to handle that legal requirement. And our camp, unfortunately, burned down in the fires this last summer. And that's fine. I don't bring that up as a tragedy, other than it's a tragedy for kids, because I don't know where they're going to go. And they're going to have to continue to find places where they can get exposure and education about a whole host of different topics. But specifically to this, I just have a heart for any opportunity that, the Joneses would invite people in there and to expose them to ag. And if there's kids or other people that want to switch careers that would be interested in going into agriculture, selfishly, that will benefit the businesses that I'm involved with.
Okay, thank you. In your experience, have you found a nexus between access to this type of education and desire to enter that field?
Oh, gosh. Absolutely. And I don't, but I would say this, that isn't that every field? You look at inner city kids that don't ever get exposed to, like, I'll tell you this. I grew up in Beaver. When I was a kid, I got to go down and be a page at the state capitol. And that was through Beaverton High School, and I got to go down there. And that exposed me to a legislative process and lawyers. I mean, just things that I would never even consider, I would have never even been exposed to. And I think that's with everything. If you can get kids that go into a manufacturing facility who are never going to go into a manufacturing facility otherwise. Food production, you name it. If somebody can go do an internship or get exposed, I mean, isn't education just absolutely the essential thing that creates that nexus? If people don't have access. And I don't know, I mean, I would say this, I was always throughout my life, I always wanted to be in agriculture and farming, and that wasn't what I was exposed to as a kid. And so I've come to these industries late in life, and it wasn't my family that got me there. And I heard heard different times, you and your partners, you're not going to succeed in the nursery business because you didn't grow up on a nursery. And then, so there's kind of a little bit of a closed-off system there. So if you have educational experiences for people that go like, oh, I think I want to go be a farmer, I want to go be a nurseryman, I want to go do those things, just even if it's a day through a great experience, absolutely there's a nexus, a connection to that child wanting to go into that career. And we're and particularly in Oregon, being a land-grant university system, as opposed to some other state that doesn't have an ag school, kids can go, oh, I can go to Oregon State, and again, selfishly, those kids coming out, if I could hire them, I want them, because I can't find them right now.
Okay, thank you for your testimonies. Anybody have questions or comments they want to, with Mr. Harbolt on the phone? No. Okay, then I'm going to say goodbye and end the call. Thank you for your time and testimony.
Yeah, thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anything additional that you wanted to add?
So we've heard a couple instances regarding the educational experience, which planning doesn't disagree that it's needed, is the nature of the permit as a commercial use. Typically, we see commercial uses as, the John Deere tractor facility on Silverton, irrigation specialists that repair irrigation equipment or repair shops for tractors, people that produce products or things like that for like fertilizer plants that produce for the specific farms. Now from the application and discussing it with other members of staff, we felt that this was more of an educational, like a school type facility. There are also a lot of components of it that could be outright allowed in with a farm stand. Having people come to the property, purchasing products grown on the property or from around the area, like pumpkin, and doing like the pumpkin patch thing that you see, in the fall, other harvest activities. Those can all be farm uses that are already allowed through farm stands. And there are other aspects to it that could be considered agritourism. And so staff just felt that the educational school aspect of it did not fit into the commercial use. That would be more of a specific school. Let me see. So when the applicant spoke of the structure having people come in and purchasing items from it, or have some sort of, like a field trip come in, that could be considered under farm stand. One of the other things of the application had was that there states that the primary source of income would be the admission fees for this educational experience, and that there would be no standard operating hours, at least none that we could find in the application, and that the visitors would be in large groups, i.e. school buses, which would definitely help with traffic, but we did have a concern that there would be no set schedule or time frame or things like that to, like a commercial business would have, standard operating hours. We also did not feel that commercial use in conjunction with farm was typically associated with children and family activities. When you think of commercial use on a farm or with relation to farm uses, children and families typically don't come to mind. And this was just an interpretation of staff, which is part of our job, is to interpret the code based on experiences and evidence. And I believe that's all that staff has for now, unless you have any questions.
Just a quick question to clarify.
Of course.
The planning's discussion of admission fees being a major source of income is what, as distinguished between purchase of products from that farm?
That was a statement from the applicant, not a verbatim, but that was in the application as stating that their primary source of income will be the admission fees.
Okay. 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 I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Ms. King. Would the applicant like to provide any rebuttal?
I think there are other folks who'd like to testify in
Oh, okay.
support of the application.
Okay, and is there anybody that has signed in that would like to testify?
Yeah, I can make a quick statement.
Okay. Please come up, state your full name and provide your address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Nicole Sharp. That's SHARPE, and I live at 20895 Arbor Grove Road Northeast, so directly adjacent, my property is directly adjacent to the applicant's property.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ms. Sharp, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you will give in the proceeding will be true to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a brief indication of support for the program. As someone who came to farming later in life, and I think Mr. Herbold covered this in great detail, agricultural education experiences were something that I didn't have access to except through distant relatives growing up, and that is definitely something that would have been beneficial to me in identifying an interest in agriculture earlier. And as someone who's also interested in education in general, I think that agricultural education is incredibly important. I really support everything Mr. Herbold said already. But I just wanted to provide another statement of support for that. Although I see now that this discussion is revolving more around the commercial use than the educational program side.
Thank you. Anything further you'd like to add?
No.
Okay, thank you for your statement. Are there any other individuals who are signed in? Okay, please come up and state and spell your name for the record and your address as well.
My name is Steve Katz, C-A-T-T-S, and I reside at 20894 Arbor Grove Road, Northeast in St. Paul, Oregon. And I am a neighbor also of the property.
Okay, let me stop you there just for a second. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be true to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. So, one thing I just want to state for the record is that the Jones have cleaned up the property. It was an eyesore prior to them purchasing the property. There was a lot of trash laying around, and as neighbors, we're really thankful for what they've done, how they have cleaned it up and made it presentable. On the commercial side, I have started when I was a young man, a 300-acre nursery. So I raise ornamental trees and shrubs. I also raise grass seed. And Jeff Jones was instrumental in helping me become educated about the nursery industry when I was younger. And he took me on an educational tour of Heinz Nursery. He exposed me to people who could help me get involved in the nursery industry, and I actually believe that much of my success in the industry is due to Jeff's tutelage along the way, educating me about the industry. What was said earlier from the gentleman on the telephone is exactly correct. We do not have people coming into this industry. If you look in education, my wife is an educator in the Newburgh School District. There are not horticulture programs, there are not mechanical programs that teach kids about equipment, how to repair equipment, how to work on equipment. There's just a dearth of that information available to junior high, high school students, even elementary students to get exposed to agriculture. And we are desperately in need of mid-managers and managers to help us in this industry, and we just cannot find them because they're not exposed early enough to develop a love for agriculture or to develop an understanding of it. I would gladly pay Jeff to recruit young people into this industry if I could. If that's a way you can say that this is a commercial enterprise, we do need it. And one thing I don't understand is I know for a fact there's other enterprises like this in Marion County that are currently operating that bring students in busloads, because my wife was a kindergarten teacher and took kids to other farm stands where they paid to have each child be there. And so I know that this has existed in other formats in Marion County in the St. Paul area. But we desperately need what Jeff is showing, and he has brought a really professional, well-done approach to this. I mean, it's a small farm at 35 acres that's actually arable, but his farm also has a lot of forestry ground on it, and so it can expose kids to forestry and what's involved in that, just by exposing them to timber and how it's grown. So I think there's a lot of things that it is well suited for that property, that property is well suited to the type of thing that he would like to accomplish. And we're all for it as neighbors who deal with the local traffic and deal with all the other things that we deal with. But we need more people who have an understanding of agriculture. Just drive a tractor down any Marion County road and watch the people who have no patience for you while you're doing that.
Right.
Yeah,
Down.
yeah. So that's kind of my perspective on this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Is there anybody else that wanted to testify? Mr. Gilardi, any follow-up rebuttal? I'm sorry, is it Gilardi or?
Gilardi,
Gilardi,
yes, that's
okay.
right.
Thank you.
Just a few things, Ms. Foster. First of all, I'd like to object to staff's testimony today insofar as it goes beyond. It includes new justifications for denying the permit, and I'd object under ORS 197-763. What the statute says is that any staff report that is going to be given at a hearing has to be available 7 days before the hearing. And what the staff have done is essentially create a new oral staff report to justify their decision. What the courts have said is the purpose of that 7-day requirement is to make sure that all the parties understand what the issues are and have a fair opportunity to respond to them. And we haven't had a fair opportunity because staff have just made up some new justifications that they've never given in the year and a half that we've been working on this. And that includes this idea about, a school or education not qualifying as a commercial activity. This idea of a concern about operating hours, and there was also a reference to traffic. None of that's ever been discussed in this proceeding. So I think there's a basic issue of fairness in the way that staff have conducted themselves. If they had told us a year and a half ago, boy, we'd really like you to have a farm stand on this property, then it's something that we might have considered, but that's certainly not what we were told. And, of course, there's a limit to their authority there, which I'll get to in a minute. And I also think that, the way that staff have added new justifications here really raises a due process issue. Both procedural and substantive. I mean, there's a substantive due process issue here that this denial, it's not rationally related to any legitimate government purpose to say, no, we just don't want you to have an educational use on this farm under this commercial activity category. We just don't want the category to be used for that, despite the fact that you meet the plain text of the criteria that apply to that use. There's a due process issue there. So to get to staff's comments, first of all, this is not a school. We are not proposing a school. We hope that local schools or youth groups may want to have field trips out to the farm, but that's not the same thing as running a school. It's not a school. We haven't applied for a school. Second, operating hours and traffic. The staff have admitted that we meet ORS 215, 296, that we're not going to, there's no impact to the surrounding farming community for this. So this sort of vague concern about operating hours or a mention of traffic, that's not related to the criteria because they've admitted that we meet the criteria related to impacts to farming practices. So again, this decision is not based on the applicable criteria. It's based on some other predilection of the staff. And the Court of Appeals has said in the Zerker case, which is cited in our appeal statement, that that's not lawful. And again, the staff does not have authority to say, you've applied to do X with your property. Well, we want you to do Y instead. Or you want X permit, well, we want you to have Y permit. If you meet the criteria for the permit that you're seeking, then the staff has to approve it. That's the way the law works. Now, just one more thing, Ms. Foster, you asked a question about, the nexus between kids being exposed to agriculture and then ultimately wanting to go into careers in agriculture, and I think a couple people today have spoken to that nexus. I think that evidence is substantial. But in addition, in the record, we have provided examples of other farm experience programs, both in Oregon and around the country. And so all these various outfits, they believe in this nexus, and they're having success with this nexus, and that evidence is in the record. And I'll stop there unless you have further questions.
No, and I'll say I think the criteria at the beginning, it was 17136060, those 4 commercial activities are what I'm restricted to looking at, and to the extent I think it was just the 2 that were in question that were determined to be not met. That is the focus of the inquiry today. So, say the applicant has the burden to establish that it meets all 4 criteria, and I agree, not go to some other one it should have done, but these 4 criteria that are there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, anything else from anyone? And do we want to hold the record open for any period of time to submit any other case law, reference to other uses, anything else you want to submit?
Not unless Ms. Hearings Officer, you would like to see additional briefing or evidence on any particular issue. We believe that everything's in the record.
Okay. That's all I need then. So I will, if you're driving home and you change your mind, shoot an email over. Otherwise, I'll just close the record at 5 o'clock tonight, unless there's something else you want. Anything else, planning? Nope.
No, planning has no further comments.
Thank you. So at this time, I will close the hearing, hold the record open until 5 o'clock, and write a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.